pleased to know that in 2000, Business Week magazine had a cover that said, "Too much corporate power?" Question mark. And it answered yes, yes, yes in 6 detailed pages. And then it had an editorial. It reported a poll, the American people, 71% said corporations have too much control over their lives. And that's before the corporate crime wave that started with Enron and went to Wall Street, looting and draining trillions of dollars from worker pensions and small investors. You can imagine what that poll would be today. 81% of the people in a poll a few days ago said country's going in the wrong directions. Who's driving the country in the wrong direction? Last I heard, hundreds of millions of people in North America and South America and around the world, they're doing their daily work, sweating it out. Who's driving the U.S. in the wrong direction? It's corporate power that's doing it. Corporate crime, corporate fraud, corporate abuse. It's a runaway corporate system. It is above the law, beyond the law. It makes the law. David K. Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the New York Times, wrote a book recently called Perfectly Legal on how the corporations write the tax laws for themselves. And this is one smart reporter. And he made the following statement. He said, "It's reached a point where these global corporations can decide how much taxes they're going to pay, when they're going to pay the taxes, and in what country they're going to pay." Just think of that in terms of power. Can you do that? Corporations having equal constitutional rights make it impossible for us to live in a country of equal justice under law. Corporations can be in 1,000 places at once. Can you? Corporations can create their own parents called holding companies. Can you? Corporations go bankrupt and pay their executives top dollar while they get rid of their creditors, their tort claimants, and their labor agreements. It's not an equal playing field. This is the central issue of the campaign. It's got to be corporate power. They have no moral sense. You think corporations have meetings saying, what should be our policy to get out of Iraq? You think Exxon has a board meeting saying, we're U.S. chartered corporations, we should take a position on Iraq? They could care less. The only interest they have in Iraq is to keep control of the oil. The only interest Halliburton has in Iraq, or Blackwater, is to keep those contracts coming. So they can rip off the taxpayer, endanger our soldiers, and keep renewing their contracts. To keep their stock up, so they can pay their executives higher salaries. Who says no? Always ask the question. When you say to yourself what you want for your country and your world, who says no? Take the top 10 or 12 major problems confronting the world and ask yourself, are these global corporations contributing to these injustices and deprivations? Are they indifferent to them, or are they reducing them? Try cancer. Where's the tobacco companies? They're cancer companies. They're trying to hook more and more millions of young people in the third world so they come down with cancer and heart disease. Well, they're not a solution to the problem of cancer. How about global warming? The fossil fuel corporations. They're contributing to it. And if they don't buy up solar companies, they do everything to make sure that solar companies don't operate on a level playing field in terms of taxes and other benefits that are accruing year after year to the coal, oil, gas, uranium companies. Dictators, that's a problem around the world. Corporations love dictators as long as they can get the concessions for the mines and the franchises for the business. They look at dictators as one-stop decision-making. They get along with them. They have for centuries. Let's see what else. Timber, forests. Are these timber companies contributing to the denuding of the tropical forest? Are they indifferent to them, or are they trying to save them? The question answers itself. The oceans, starving from oxygen, acidification. The fish catches are down. There's some reports that 90% of the big fish are gone. Fish factories, these huge ocean fish factories. scraping the bottom of the ocean. You know how much they scrape in 1 year recently with these giant mechanisms? An area the size of the United States of America. And you know what happens when you scrape the ocean floor to the ecology? We now have moratoriums on catching cod off of Newfoundland. Some of these great schools of fish are heading toward extinction. You see that being discussed at all? The trivialization of the presidential campaigns between the two parties keeps reaching new lows. There doesn't seem to be any depth that they cannot descend to. Just look at the headlines. Look at the pundits on Sunday TV when they sit around the table as reporters and they talk about gaffes and tactics and tones of voice and was the eyebrow arched just right. I mean, it's demeaning to watch it. We're looking in the mirror when we allow this to happen. So, we have to have a higher estimate of our own significance. Very easy. Turn this country around. We start with a country that's full of problems they don't deserve and solutions on the shelf we don't apply. We start with a country where we have 535 people in the Congress, the most powerful turnaround institution in the history of our country. Controls budgets, controls whether we can go to war or not, controls health and safety standards. It controls whether we're going to have adequate housing for poor people, public transit, you name it. 535. In every congressional district, there's 600,000 people, men, women, children. Why can't we organize 2,000 people in every congressional district into a Congress watchdog organization? Call it a civic hobby. People have done far more difficult things in their daily life. They've taken care of their illness in the family. They've taken care of children who are difficult to raise. They've been in accidents. They've had to make ends meet and they're behind 6 months on their payments. Those are very difficult things they have to contend with compared to joining a Congress watchdog group. For heaven's sake, just look at the bird watchers, how intense they are. They want to watch birds. We want to watch Congress. That's one way to turn Congress around. One way to get out of Iraq. One way to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. One way to stand tall before the world so we can become a humanitarian superpower, not just the biggest export of death-dealing weapons to countries around the world and to dictators who repress their own people with these weapons and sometimes turn it against our own soldiers. That's one turnaround. Is that beyond our range of imagination and civic intensity? Of course not. We're just not imagining it. We're not projecting it. We don't have a high estimate of our own significance as people in this country to take control of our destiny and our future. The second way we can change this election, this is even easier. These major candidates go through cities. They campaign. They're going to come to Chicago. So why not form a coalition, an ad hoc coalition of neighborhood groups, labor unions, student organizations, League of Women Voters, Urban League, maybe some countercultural small business groups, get together, have a letterhead, basically say to the major candidates, we represent hundreds of thousands of voters in Chicago, at least. And we are inviting you, when you come to town, to a public auditorium where we're going to put our agenda on your table and you're going to respond to it. And we're going to have you ask us questions and we're going to ask you questions. And maybe you'll never have heard these questions before in your entire political career. But there's always a time for everything to begin. Now,